This video we're going to show you how to create a call queue in Xelion. First of all, click on Administration, click on Phone Lines, click New Line, and we're going to call this one Support Call Queue because we're going to create a call queue for our fictional support team. Press OK. We've now created the phone line. And in this phone line, we don't want to have any timeout on this phone line because we're going to use this as a call queue. You can add any extension numbers required here for accessing the call queue, perhaps an internal extension number or maybe a customer facing number to get directly into the queue. In this instance, we're not going to use any extension numbers. We're going to have this call queue accessed via an auto attendant, which we'll cover in another video. We can also add any phones here to the call queue, but in this instance we're not going to add any phones here because we're going to have the phones hot desking using speed dials so they can log in and log out of the queues themselves, and we'll cover that in the hot desking and speed dials video. So process calls in order must be checked to enable the call queue. Queue audio messages is where you select the music on hold that will play whilst the callers are queuing. The category in here will have any one of multiple files within it that you set within the music on hold section within the admin interface. In this instance, we're going to select the queue standard category. Line hunting policy. This is how you choose how the calls will be offered to the phones within the call queue. None means that all phones will ring at once. Linear, this offers the calls to the first phone that is free, and it always starts with phone number 1 in the phone line. For circular, the first call is offered to phone 1, the second call is offered to phone 2, and the third call is offered to phone 3, even if phone 1 and phone 2 are free at that point. Most idle is offered to the phone that hasn't received a call for the longest time. For least idle, the call is offered to the phone that was most recently on a call. All, this periodically calls all the phones that are not engaged on calls. Skill-based is a feature we'll cover in a separate video, as this is an all-new feature in Xelion 7. Line hunting timeout. This is how long the phone will ring before attempting another phone in accordance with the selected line hunting policy. Connect first available. With this enabled, Xelion will offer the call to the first phone that is available, and it will ring that phone until that call is answered, ignoring the line hunting policy. This is useful to avoid available agents having to wait for the line hunting policy to time out. Match caller. With this checked, Xelion will offer the call to the phone that has most recently communicated with that customer, regardless of the line hunting policy that has been set. The maximum amount of time that Xelion will look through the records to match the caller is 1 month. Wrap-up time. This is the amount of time an agent is given after the call is finished before being made available again. This only works in conjunction with a line hunting policy. Manual wrap-up. This allows an agent to terminate their wrap-up time early to make themselves available quicker. Maximum number of waiting calls. This dictates the maximum number of calls that you want to be able to have in the call queue. With nothing stated in this field, there is no limit on the calls that can enter the queue. Report number of waiting calls. This functionality allows the system to report the number of calls remaining in the queue to your customer whilst they're waiting within the queue itself. Never means that the calls will never be reported, so the number of calls queuing won't be reported. Periodically will report the number of calls, but after a set interval defined within the box below. So that could be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, etc. Between notifications will report the number of calls waiting in the queue after the audio file that is set within the music on hold category, so in this case queue standard there at the top, after the given audio file within there has ended, it will then report the number of calls waiting in the queue. Periodically starts immediately. This functions exactly the same as periodically, however it will immediately report the number of calls in a queue and then go on to the periodic interval of the seconds set within the field below. Between notifications starts immediately. Again, this one functions exactly the same as between notifications. However, in this instance, as soon as the caller hits the queue, they'll get a report of how many calls are in the queue, and then it will follow the same functionality as the between notifications. And again, to be clear, that means that the number of calls within the queue will be reported to the customer as soon as the current file within the queue audio messages music on hold category has finished. The report period number waiting seconds field, this is as described previously. This is the interval for which the number of calls waiting in the queue will be reported when using the periodically modes in the previous field. Recordings number of waiting calls. This is where you select the music on hold category that contains the audio recordings stating how many calls are waiting in the queue. So you need multiple files within this music on hold category. At 0 calls waiting, the first file will be used. At 1 call waiting, the second file will be used, and so on. If you have more calls in the queue than you have files within this category, then the last file will just play continuously. Enable auto attendant for the queue. This enables the auto attendant menu options from within the call queue itself. The caller can then enter a number for the corresponding option they require. Note, internal extension number dialing via 0 is not possible. Also, on the auto attendant tab of this phone line, you must have the use auto attendant option unchecked for the in-queue attendant to function correctly. And that is creating a call queue in Xelion. Thanks for watching.